My name is Jennifer Schultz, and I serve as a pastor at the Brookside location and also with the missions team. You know, I love Sundays. This is a time to deepen our faith, to build relationships and grow in our connection with God. And yet, we often struggle with holding our faith to Sunday church or maybe even to your confirmation class. I think a lot of church folks have compartmentalized worship in this way and consider serving others and sharing God's love to be something that takes place outside of worship and represents a time to help the less fortunate. And while there's some truth in this, yet it's also a really divisive way of looking at people. Now, on any given Sunday at Mill Creek Park in Kansas City, you can find one of many different generous and well-meaning churches that serve food to the Kansas City folks that are unhoused. Most of these meals are prepared by members of the congregation, and they're served in large portions with great big old smiles. And yet there seems to be this unspoken rule for the volunteers to stay on their side of the serving table. I've been serving Sundays in the park for years, and yet I continue to struggle to get those folks who are serving the meals to sit down and actually eat with the people they're serving. Those rectangular white tables where the food sits start serving as like this visible reminder of a dividing line between these two communities, almost like the haves and the have-nots aren't supposed to be together. I want to talk briefly about Samaria, as this was a group of people that were avoided at all costs by all other communities. They were practically seen as less than human. And yet in John 4, we read of Jesus, when coming upon the Samaritan woman, positioned himself as the person in need. We read a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food, and the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" And instead of being the hero, Jesus went to her asking for help. He wasn't just talking to the Samaritan woman, but he was also sharing his position of power with her. It's like he was eating with her in the park. You know, when I initially started participating on Sundays in the park, I made a personal decision to not receive food from the table. I mean, my logic seemed really simple. I can afford to buy my own food, so I shouldn't be taking food from someone else who might need it. Unbeknownst to me, I had actually positioned myself behind the table. I was with the haves instead of the have-nots. And the more I thought about it, my fear of being perceived as one of the needy was far overshadowing my desire to actually build relationship with the homeless community. Here's the really cool thing about that. When I became willing to sit down and break bread with the people at the table, our conversation shifted from thank yous to what church are you with and why are you out here helping me? And then I got to respond instead of you're welcome because you're a child of God and we're family. And thank you for letting me sit with you. As all of you are finishing your confirmation journey, you are moving into the next phase of your faith walk. And as you think about what comes next, the truth is, next is being the hands and feet of Christ. As our upcoming youngest members, I want to invite each of you to step up and step out by being role models who build relationships as Christ taught us. In John chapter 4, verse 27, after Jesus shared with the woman at the well, we read, "Just then his disciples came. They were astonished that he was speaking with a woman, but no one said, 'What do you want?' or 'Why are you speaking with her?' Because as Jesus demonstrated unconditional love to this person in need, to the disciples, their perspective was changed. So I ask each of you, will you demonstrate that kind of love to each other, to your friends, to your families, and maybe even to the people in our church? When you see someone sitting alone in the cafeteria, after school or at a game or maybe even at church, instead of ignoring them or even begrudgingly helping them, but clearly as if you're doing them a favor, would you consider Christ's conversation with the Samaritan woman and how he started by acknowledging she had something he needed. She had water. This need was foundational in the relationship Christ built with the people. We have to first see value in all people, the same people that others might have said they have nothing of value to offer. And our focus may begin to shift from people that are doing for instead to being with as we spend time listening and receiving what people perceived as being in need have to offer us. We begin to shift that position of power to one that starts building a relationship. And all of this becomes an opportunity to demonstrate our beliefs, especially in how we live our lives. Why would Jesus go through Samaria? I believe to demonstrate to his disciples and ultimately all of us that just as Jesus intentionally walked to a person and place that was shunned by everyone else, we are expected to walk into communities like the park or maybe the not ideal lunch table, places we may have consciously or subconsciously avoided when we were feeling uncomfortable. I can almost guarantee you that this way of doing life, especially at the beginning, will not be easy. That first plate of food I ate sitting on the ground was uncomfortable, not just for my body, but for my ego. But in those hard to sit spaces, that's where I find my greatest blessings. And I begin to see Christ in the eyes of those that maybe otherwise I may have just seen as the needy. And it's my hope that maybe those same folks saw a little bit of Christ in me.